The following episode contains descriptions of sexual violence and may not be suitable for everyone. Please see the episode notes for more information about support services.
It's November 1993. Stephen Hoffenberg is in his late 40s, with coiffed hair and round cheeks that puff out when he grins. Hoffenberg is known around New York as a quintessential Wall Street master of the universe. Recently, he bailed out the financially troubled tabloid, the New York Post. He turns up at society functions, and he's rented a whole floor in Trump Tower. He made his fortune running a company called Towers Financial, which bought up debts like unpaid medical bills and got the debtors to pay them. At its peak, Towers had 1,200 employees. It was worth an estimated $95 million. But Hoffenberg's business tactics haven't always been above board. The SEC's been investigating him for years, and now they have enough evidence to put together a case. Today, Hoffenberg sits inside a grand jury chamber in Chicago. With Towers Financial, they allege, Hoffenberg operated one of the biggest financial frauds in U.S. history, cheating investors out of more than $450 million. Hoffenberg is planning to cooperate with the government and tell them more about his scheme, and also about the man he claims engineered it, his business partner, Jeffrey Epstein. Hoffenberg takes his seat before the jury. The prosecutor approaches and asks Hoffenberg to walk them through the plan he and Epstein devised, step by step. Hoffenberg and Epstein targeted people who didn't have much money, retirees, widows, the disabled, and promised healthy returns on their investment. But instead, they used the money to cover losses in other risky business deals, and hundreds of thousands of people lost their life savings. It was a classic Ponzi scheme. Again and again, the prosecutor asked who designed the scam and the complex stock manipulations it required. Hoffenberg always answers with the same name. Jeffrey Epstein was the person in charge of the transactions. Epstein was trying to manipulate the price of the stock? Yes. You didn't object to that, sir? No. Hoffenberg is sentenced for the scheme and serves nearly 2 decades in prison. To this day, Hoffenberg still says the same thing he said to prosecutors back then.
He was the mastermind, brilliant Wall Street executive that was an expert in what was taking place at the company that was doing the criminal misconduct. He was brilliant at it. Totally brilliant at it. He participated in everything with me, 24/7.
But when reporters from the Washington Post later look at this case, they find something strange. Even though Hoffenberg's grand jury testimony gave detailed, damning evidence that Epstein was deeply involved in the scheme, Epstein's involvement vanishes from the case. And while Hoffenberg went to prison for years, Epstein was never charged. Today, Hoffenberg claims that the money Epstein made from their Ponzi scheme became the foundation for his fortune. But digging into the origins of Jeffrey Epstein's wealth is more complicated than that. Where his money came from is still a question reporters are trying to answer. But a few things are certain. Federal investigators questioned Epstein about shady financial deals, yet he was never indicted. And his fortunes rose when, as a young man on Wall Street, he was able to charm and win the trust of a few corporate titans, including, in particular, one lonely billionaire. The Mysterious Mr. Epstein is sponsored by NetSuite. Before I was a full-time podcaster, I worked in analytical marketing. It was a good gig, both creative and data-driven. And while I love the creative side, in the end, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. But good Lord, is getting the right numbers hard. Legacy systems won't talk with cloud services. Half the department is working in rogue Excel documents. Marketing inexplicably keeps formatting reports into PDFs. It's an inefficient mess. NetSuite by Oracle can help. NetSuite is advanced, integrated business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform, giving you the visibility and control you need. Because if you don't know, you can't grow. With NetSuite, you save time, money, and unneeded headaches by managing sales, finance, and accounting, orders, and HR instantly right from your desktop or phone. Find out for yourself why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide. 7 key strategies to grow your profits at netsuite.com/MME. That's netsuite.com/MME to download your free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits at netsuite.com/MME. From Wondery, I'm Lindsey Graham, host of American Scandal, and this is The Mysterious Mr. Epstein. This is episode 2, Poor, Smart, and Desperate. It's the spring of 1969 at Lafayette High School in South Brooklyn. Jeffrey Epstein is 16 years old. A photo in his senior yearbook shows him in his graduation gown, shoulders slouched, posing for the camera, but looking like his mind is elsewhere. Another photo, taken around the same time, shows him shirtless in cut-off jeans, his feet in the sand of Coney Island Beach. He has a wild mess of hair and a pudgy torso, and again he's slouched over. The young man is a whiz at math and science, and a member of the school band. Epstein and his family live in Coney Island, in a cluster of middle-class homes surrounded by the flat, gray-blue water of the Brooklyn seaside. Countless news outlets have reported that Epstein's father, Seymour, worked for the Parks Department, and on Seymour's death certificate, the Parks Department is listed as his employer. But the truth is, Seymour only worked there for 3 months in 1960. Almost like everything else in Epstein's origin story, even his father is a mysterious footnote. After Epstein graduates, he attends Cooper Union for 2 years. Then he enrolls at New York University. But he drops out in the summer of '74 without earning a degree. But this is where he makes his first leap up the New York social ladder. At 21 years old, he lands a job teaching math and physics at one of the most prestigious private high schools in the country, where he'll leave a strong impression on the children of New York's elite and their fathers. It's the fall of 1975 at the Dalton School on Manhattan's Upper East Side. The school looks unassuming from the outside, an austere brick building, windows studded with air conditioners. But inside, its classrooms are filled with the children of celebrities and captains of industry.
Hey, Mr. Epstein.
Between classes, Mr. Epstein mingles with his students. He's got a magnetism now that eluded him in his high school days. He'll later be photographed for the school yearbook, wearing a suit jacket and a shirt with a flared-out collar, unbuttoned, revealing his chest and a gold chain. Peter Branch, who was head of the upper school at the time, remembers when Epstein arrived.
With a person like Epstein, who could teach physics and higher-level math, skills that are still in rare supply in the school world, and with clearly ability to convince people that he was something that he wasn't, it's not surprising to me that he was hired.
Many students like Mr. Epstein. On top of teaching math and physics, he also coaches the school's math team. He even performs for the spring musical, with the school paper noting that Mr. Epstein proved himself to be the ivory showman on the piano. Epstein doesn't behave like the other teachers. He attends a party at a student's house where students are drinking. He flirts with girls in the hallways. Rumors circulate about Epstein's relationship with one girl in particular. He's never accused of any crimes, but the New York Times will later report that a few students were, quote, so discomfited by a close relationship he had with one of their female peers that one of them had raised the issue to a school administrator. Students at Dalton come from some of the wealthiest families in the country. Their parents aren't easily impressed, but Mr. Epstein makes an impression. It's through Dalton that Epstein manages to meet Ace Greenberg, a legend on Wall Street. And it turns out that Epstein is exactly the sort of man that Ace Greenberg likes to recruit. Like Epstein, Greenberg comes from modest means. He arrived in New York looking for work during the recession of 1949.
I finally did get a job as a clerk at Bear Stearns, and it was $32.50 a week. That didn't go very far then. And I know the prices were cheaper then than they are now, but I can tell you that it still didn't go very far. It didn't go any place.
Still in his early 50s, Greenberg's risen through the ranks of the investment bank Bear Stearns. And Greenberg's background dictates his hiring philosophy. He's on the lookout for what he calls PSDs, employees who are poor, smart, and desperate to get rich. Greenberg thinks Epstein is an ideal hire for Bear Stearns. For a long time, Epstein's origin story was that Dalton opened his eyes to a world of boundless wealth, influence, and power. So he quit the teaching gig, and with talent to spare, he went out to make his mark and his millions on Wall Street. But the head of the upper school, Peter Branch, says Epstein didn't take the job seriously, that he was falling short of Dalton's standards. So Branch asked him to leave. In 1976, Epstein starts at Bear Stearns as a junior assistant floor trader, but he's talented, and he quickly moves up the ladder. Within just 4 years, Epstein's a limited partner at Bear Stearns. Most 27-year-old college dropouts would consider themselves on a glide path to comfort and security, but not Epstein. He abruptly leaves Bear Stearns a year later. He'll tell people it was because he wanted more, that he wanted to start his own firm. He wanted to help the super-rich, quote, understand the power, the responsibility, and the burden of their money. But once again, that's not the whole truth. It's April Fool's Day, 1981, just 3 weeks after Epstein resigned from Bear Stearns. He's being questioned by the Securities and Exchange Commission about allegations of insider trading around a mineral company called the St. Joe Minerals Corporation. The SEC investigators start in on Epstein. Sir, are you aware that certain rumors may have been circulating around your firm in connection with your reasons for leaving the firm? I'm aware there were many rumors. What were the rumors you heard? Nothing to do with St. Joe. Has anyone indicated to you in any way, either directly or indirectly, in words or substance, that your compensation for this past year or any future monies coming to you from Bear Stearns will be contingent upon your not divulging information to the Securities and Exchange Commission? No. The questioning goes on, but the SEC never brings charges against Epstein or anyone else at Bear Stearns. Epstein later admits that part of why he left Bear Stearns was over an illegal loan to an old friend. He claims he didn't know it was illegal, but that it cost him his shot at becoming a full partner. Nevertheless, when Epstein leaves, he still gets his annual bonus of $100,000. But the bonus doesn't last long, and soon Epstein is reportedly broke. He needs a new plan. Jeffrey Epstein stands in front of a building in Midtown Manhattan called the Villard House. It's as long as a city block and has touches of an Italian palazzo and was once the residence of a railroad tycoon. Epstein's new business partner set him up with an office at this coveted address. He's paying Epstein $25,000 a month to serve as his business consultant. His new business partner is named Stephen Hoffenberg, the head of Towers Financial. Together, Epstein and Hoffenberg come up with a new business venture. They take money from retirees on the pretense of safe investments and then use them to keep their own aggressive business ventures afloat. But when the investments nosedive, all $460 million of the retirees' money is lost in the wreckage. Hoffenberg gets indicted and ends up in prison. Prosecutors, though, do nothing to pursue Epstein further. To this day, Hoffenberg claims not to understand why.
There's no explanation for not charging Epstein at that time. There's none, because he should have been charged.
So Epstein skates out of one of the largest Ponzi schemes in American history and back to running his advisory firm, J. Epstein & Co. Epstein boasts that it has only one rule: billionaires only. If you only have $999 million to your name, take a hike. But if you have $1 billion, J. Epstein & Company will happily shoulder the burden of managing your wealth. Which leads to a very fruitful relationship with the only billionaire he'll ever publicly confirm is a client of J. Epstein & Company. A billionaire who turned a single clothing store into a retail empire that would include Abercrombie & Fitch and Victoria's Secret. His name is Les Wexner, and he's the man who made Jeffrey Epstein. The Mysterious Mr. Epstein is sponsored by SimpliSafe. Here's something you might have suspected but can now know as fact. Studies show that security systems deter burglars, but there's still a burglary every 23 seconds in the U.S. Why? Because burglars don't turn in their ski masks and